Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 2, Sankhya Yoga, Part 10. Neha Bikrama Nashosti Pratyavayo na vidyate Svalpamapyasya dharmasya Trayate mahato bhayat. In this path of disinterested action or disinclined action, there is no loss of effort, nor is there any adverse result. Even a little practice of this discipline protects one from great fear of birth and death. Sri Krishna Paramatma has explained the importance of disinterested action in the latter part of the 39th and this 40th verse in 4 ways. Number 1, by it one becomes free from shackles of actions. Number 2, there is no loss of effort. Number 3, there is no adverse result. Number 4, even a little practice of it protects one from great fear. In this path of disinterested action, there is no loss of attempt. The partial practice of this yoga, that is, discipline of disinterested action, has its corresponding benefit. The desire to attain equanimity is the beginning of equanimity. Such a beginning never gets extinct because desire for attaining the real is also real. Iha in this means that in this world human beings are authorized to attain equanimity. All other bodies of births are to enjoy worldly pains and pleasures. There is no opportunity for those beings to do away with attachment and aversion because pleasures can be enjoyed only by having attachment and aversion. If there are no attachment and aversion, no pleasure can be enjoyed, and thus the actions will lead to spiritual discipline. The actions which are performed with a desire for fruits can give adverse result. If there is any error in the pronunciation of incantations or in performing sacrifice and so on, suppose a man performs sacrifice for the birth of a son, but if it is not performed according to the scriptures, it may result in the death of a member of the family instead of blessing him with a son. Sometimes, if the result is not quite contrary, it may be less harmful as the son may be born crippled. But one who performs actions without having any desire for fruits becomes equanimous, and so there is no adverse result of his effort. What is adverse result? Unevenness of mind is the adverse result. Attachment and aversion is uneven-mindedness. This uneven-mindedness leads to the cycle of birth and death. But when a man becomes equanimous, attachment and aversion are rooted out, and on annihilation of attachment and aversion, there is no unevenness of mind, and therefore the adverse result is out of the question. Even a little practice of this discipline of disinterested action, which brings about equanimity, protects one from the great fear of birth and death. And unlike the action for fruits, which ends after giving fruits, it does not perish. Its fruit is not wealth or property which is perishable. The equanimity which a striver attains by facing favorable and unfavorable circumstances gets fixed in him and becomes permanent. A devotee deviating from the path of yoga, having enjoyed the heavenly pleasures for many years and having taken birth in the houses of righteous persons, does not lose the knowledge or even-mindedness gained in his previous birth, because this knowledge or even-mindedness is real. Dharma, that is duty, is used in two senses. Number 1, charity, that is kindness in giving help, money, food, clothes, etc. to the poor and suffering people. Number 2, discharging one's duty according to the ordinance of the scriptures. By performing one's duty without desiring its fruits, one develops equanimity automatically because it is axiomatic. Therefore, here equanimity has been called dharma. Something noteworthy. People have formed an opinion that there is no use of constant remembrance of God unless there is concentration of mind. But the Gospel of Gita does not attach much importance to this opinion. It attaches importance to equanimity. According to the Gita, the striver who has attained equanimity is an exalted soul. Even when a man is imbued with all qualities, if he does not gain equanimity, according to Gita, he cannot be called a perfect soul. This equanimity is of two kinds, of the mind and of the self. The Lord pervades everywhere equally. One who gets oneself established in Him gains victory over the world and is liberated. But this equanimity of the self can be known by equanimity of the mind. Equanimity of the mind consists in remaining even-minded in success and failure. Such a person remains even-minded in praise and reproach, success and failure, profit and loss, pleasure and pain, and so on. This sort of equanimity never perishes, and it results in nothing but salvation. Whatever virtuous actions such as penance, charity, and pilgrimage, and so on, are performed by a man, they perish after giving their fruits, but equanimity is a state of mind that does not perish, and it leads the man to salvation or God realization, while concentration of mind may lead him to accomplishments but not to salvation. In the next verse, Sri Krishna Paramatma explains to Arjuna how to attain equanimity. व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः एकेह कुरु नन्दन बहुशाखाह्यनन्ताश्च बुद्धयो अव्यवसायिनाम्. O joy of the Kurus, in this blessed path the intellect is determinate and one-pointed, whereas the intellect of the undecided is scattered in many directions and is endlessly diverse. To the seeker of God realization, the intellect is determinate and pointed. He has only one decision, and that is to attain equanimity in the form of God realization. Attachment to the world is a main obstacle to this attainment of equanimity, and that can be removed through determinate intellect. Why is determinate intellect one? The reason is that in it there is renunciation of the desire for worldly objects, etc. This renunciation of desire is one whether it pertains to wealth and riches or honor and praise. But there are objects of different types and a person wants to acquire them. Just there are different kinds of objects such as different kinds of sweets. In the same way, there are endless desires to acquire numerous objects of various types in numerous ways. Therefore, a desirous person can't have one intellect. In the discipline of action in this verse and in the discipline of devotion in chapter 9 verse 30, there is mention of intellect which is determinate and pointed, but it is not so in the discipline of knowledge. The reason is that in the discipline of knowledge, one comes to know the self first and then his intellect becomes determinate and pointed. While in the discipline of action as well as devotion, that is Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, there is a decision followed by knowledge of the self. Therefore, in the discipline of knowledge, there is importance of knowledge, while in the disciplines of devotion and action, there is importance of single-minded pursuit. The infirm in mind, being desire-ridden, clings to pleasures and prosperity, and so the intellect of such persons branch out endlessly. For example, they have a desire to get a son, and the means adopted for the fulfillment of the desire, such as medicine, incantation, oblation, and blessings of a saint, so on, are the branches of the same desire. Similarly, a man wants to get money. This is one desire, and business, service, theft, robbery, cheating, etc. are many branches of that intellect. Such a man with endless desires, having many branches, can't even take the decision about God realization. The ways of the infirm in mind, that is worldly people, have been described in the next 3 verses. यामिमां पुष्पितां वाचं प्रवदन्त्य विपश्चितः वेदवादरता पार्थ नान्यदस्तीति वादिनः कामात्मानस्वर्गपरा जन्मकर्मफलप्रदां क्रियाविशेषबहुलां भोगैश्वर्यगतिं प्रति. Arjuna, those who are obsessed by desires, who look upon heaven as the supreme goal, and argue that there is nothing beyond heaven and pleasures, and who are devoted to the letter of the Vedas are unwise. They utter flowery speech recommending many acts of various kinds for attainment of pleasure and prosperity with rebirth as their fruit. Desire ridden are those whose sole aim in life is to hunt after enjoyments. They think that it is nothing but desire which inspires a man to action, and without it a man is stone dead. Moreover, they identify themselves with desires. But the fact is that a man himself is a fragment of God and thus is eternal, while desires are fleeting and they increase and decrease. The self and desire are totally distinct. But desire ridden people never realize this distinction, but it is only out of delusion that they identify themselves with desires. They look upon heaven and its pleasures as the supreme goal, and all their efforts are directed towards this base end. Here, the term Svargapara refers to such men who have faith and believe in heaven, as described in the Vedas and scriptures. They are interested in the Vedas only for the sake of the ritualistic portions, which deal with the earthly and heavenly pleasures. The aim of their life is to enjoy celestial pleasures here and hereafter rather than to attain God realization or emancipation. They can't discriminate between the real and the unreal, the perishable and the imperishable. Such unwise persons utter flowery speech of the Vedas, which describes and recommends various acts for the attainment of pleasures and prosperity. Here the word pushpitam has been used to show that speech is just flowery with an attractive appearance without bearing any permanent fruit. Satisfaction comes out of fruit only, not from flowers and leaves. That flowery speech, instead of giving any permanent and eternal fruit, gives fruit which prolongs the wheel of birth and death. In the flowery speech, importance is attached to pleasures, and attachment to pleasure is the cause of birth. That flowery speech deals with a number of rituals for attainment of pleasure and prosperity. In these rituals, there is abundance of different kinds of rites involving various methods, various actions, objects, and strenuous physical labor.